Okay, welcome everyone this evening to beginning the special education school year successfully. My name is Jonathan Pryor. I'm the head of community outreach at Sayville Library, and I am absolutely thrilled that a panel of wonderful experts have offered their time this evening to join us and lend us their wisdom as we begin crossing another threshold in the midst of the COVID pandemic and beginning the next, what could be stressor, beginning the school year. So once again, thank you for our panel for offering your time this evening, and welcome to our audience. I'd like to welcome our panel individually, if I may, for just a moment. Joining us this evening is Dr. James Birch. He's the assistant principal at the Center for Community Adjustment in Nassau BOCES. We also welcome Miss Stacy Gigante, the administrator for special education at Sayville Public Schools. Also with us this evening is Miss Tina Hannell, the school psychologist at Sayville Elementary School, Eastern Suffolk BOCES. We also welcome Miss Jennifer Hawthorne, elementary school teacher from Lincoln Avenue School in Sayville. We welcome Ms. Eileen Tisner. I know her as the president of the Greater Sayville Chamber of Commerce, and she is absolutely wonderful. She is with us this evening as the educational advocate and founder of Teach Consulting Services. We also welcome Ms. Tracy Von Eschen, coordinator of special education at Sayville Public Schools. Hopefully this evening, if she can get in here, hopefully we will see Ms. Sharon Littman, the founder of Art Without Walls, an art non-for-profit that helps children with special needs, located here in Sayville. I'd also like to extend a special thank you to Cynthia Barry, the president of Sayville SEPTA, for her support in getting the word out about this program. Cynthia was so instrumental in helping get those numbers up and have our voice heard that we were offering this worthwhile program this evening. Thank you, Cynthia. Hopefully I have gotten to everyone this evening, and I especially want to extend a welcome to our audience, our patrons out here in our community, our parents of students with special needs who are also getting ready to cross that threshold and have their kids begin, their students begin the new school year. So without further delay, I'd like to just start with some of the questions. I am very thrilled to have some questions that were gleaned from our audience, and I'll be sharing those with our panel this evening. And once I read the question, I invite the panel to just have at it. If one of you feels like you are you have a special comfort with the subject matter, please unmute yourself and jump right in. And we'll start with some broader questions and get to some more specific questions as the list goes down. After we're done with the questions, we'll turn it over to audience Q&A. And if anyone in our audience have specific questions that we have not covered, feel free to raise your hand, or it's easy to do a thumbs up in Zoom. You can do that as well. And I will look for you and unmute you so that you can ask questions later on. So our first question this evening is, what are some of the challenges that students with special education needs will face as they return to school this year in light of COVID? So very broad, what are some of the broad challenges that students with special education needs will face returning to school this year? Anyone want to jump on that from our panel?
I'd be happy to.
Tracy.
You know, I think that, you know, I've obviously been in the buildings over the last couple of weeks, and they look different, you know, and so for kids to come back, a lot of conversations that I've had with family is, you know, and teachers, Hawthorne, we've talked a lot about it, you know, just kind of preparing the kids that the cafeteria is going to look different. Your tables are gone. If you're a seventh grader, you were there last year, it looks very different. And for myself, when I walked in, you know, it's a little shocking, or a lot of signage that wasn't there before, or your teacher's going to wear a mask and your friend's going to wear a mask. So just from the appearance, whether that be for kids with special needs or all kids, but especially our kids, you know, just a little bit of conversation with kids to just let them know that it's okay. And, you know, you're used to a lot of things looking a little bit different. I do think that'll be a little bit of a challenge for the kids to just get used to that. So as a parent, that's even a conversation that I've been having with my own children, and just trying to gauge what how they feel about that, and if that makes them kind of fearful, or you know, see if I can be helpful in their questions.
I agree. I think that's really important to communicate to your children about it. I had a conversation with a colleague a while ago, and she said she really felt like we should just go in and act as if everything is normal and not really mention what's going on. But I don't necessarily agree with that. It is not what school looked like before. So I think we really need to prepare the kids ahead of time. I mean, they're probably very used to seeing people in masks now. You know, before we started summer school, we had sent out pictures to my students of all of the staff with the mask and without, so they can see, you know, who they're going to be looking at. But I don't think we should be afraid to talk to the kids before they come in.
I think you should broach that. I think the more you dispel the unknown, the more comfortable you're going to help children. And I think one of the things about this is that if there's any anxiety a child's feeling because of these new routines, just that reminder, it's new to everybody. You're not, you know, every single person walking into the school has never gone to school like this. So, yeah, and that can make it hard for kids because maybe we're not all familiar with the protocols, but I think it makes them feel like they're part of a community of similarly confused people, you know? But talking about it is a big deal.
To add on
staying
that,
open.
oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I think that staying open, as everyone is saying, about what's going on and in a child-friendly way. But I think even to back it up just even a little bit from entering into the school, I think that most parents are going to face experiences with separation stuff. You know, they've been in the home for what, 5 to 6 months.
Yeah.
And whether the parent was in or out, they've been in their familiar surroundings for that amount of time. So I think that there are certainly some things that a parent can do to try and prepare the child for that. Like a calendar with Xing out days and
Right.
a little sticker of a school bus and a school of when they're going to be coming in. Or even just within the home. Okay, you go play over there. I'm going to be in the kitchen making dinner or something like that. But just to start preparing them as much ahead of time as possible for that separation, talking about who their teacher is, talking about friends, talking about toys that they're going to see in the classroom. What are you excited to see when you go back to school? Like trying to keep it in the positive and trying to motivate them to have a positive mindset when they do get to that doorstep, you know, of the bus or the school building, whichever. So that's a big piece that I think is important for parents. And I think that a parent's reaction to that or response, there's a difference between the two, is to maintain. Like they're gonna feed off of us and they'll be able to feel our tension and they'll be able to feel our anxiety. I mean, I know a lot of what my work is gonna be when I walk into that building tomorrow before the children even come in is to kind of sense out the staff, like, you know, just like, you know, normalize it because this is the new normal, you know, and just to remind people that we're just gonna flow because they're gonna have their own little issues, the children. But if we can try to make it flow as best our ability as we can as parents and teachers, it'll make it a little bit easier for them.
And to add on to that, for the middle school and high school students, I think we also have to now establish a working area at home. So one of the things that I'm a firm believer in is preparation, just in case it becomes permanent learning. I'm sure we've had a lot of time since March to establish little areas, but now for the middle school, high school, I'm getting calls from parents with recommendations on how I think a good area should be set up. How are they going to deal with these children being home while they're at work? So one of the things I'm doing on my site, I should say my Facebook, it seems like everybody likes Facebook much more. I'm going to be doing lists of things that they can do. So it would be an emergency contact at home. It would be, you know, when they need to sign on, they'll set up their phones to remind them when they need to sign on to school, when they need to sign off. I mean, these are just a few examples, but what area they need to go to, when will there be their study time? Because now this is also a fear of a lot of parents having maybe some 11-year-olds that are not used to being home a couple of days a week, and they're a little bit concerned and nervous about that. So having people check in on their kids, could be an aunt, a grandmother, a sister, an older sister, a brother, just somebody checking in on them regularly, asking, are they okay? Because now, like you said, the separation is going to be something, we've all been so together. I say social and distance not mixed. It's like an oxymoron. So it's two totally opposite things that we've tried to put together. So I think now, we've all been together so much, like you said, they're going to experience separation in so many different ways. The parents might be anxious too when they have to go back to work, bringing the child to a couple of days a week to do work in the older grades.
I think also, as James had said, the fear of the unknown is very real. There, usually when school starts, we all look to some sort of predictability, even though it's new and kids get excited. But there's a lot of unknown out there, so they're walking in, and some students haven't been out of their home that much, so it might be the first time that they're around so many children and adults and the mass. So that predictability. There's a lot, even as adults and parents, that we can't offer that we usually can for the start of school. So what you offer, what you do know, you can kind of show them in any kind of schedule or any kind of predictability that you can offer them before they go forward. I think that would really help, because there's a lot of unknowns, I think, for all of us.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I agree with that. That's amazing. And that's important, even just to jot down 3 or 4 things to kind of establish a structure and a routine, breakfast, get dressed, watch TV, play outside. Just so that it kind of structures their day. And when they walk into those classrooms, the teachers will have that all arranged as well. They have their set daily schedule to kind of make it as predictable as we possibly can. There's always a surprise thing that pops up, but I have a feeling there's going to be a lot less of that.
The good news is a few days in, it will be more familiar. We'll have a little bit more that we do know, and more predictability that we can give them. But I think it's important to really pay attention to how kids are feeling, what behaviors you might see that might not be the usual, or just what they're thinking, or what their take on what their experience it is, because it's completely new for everyone.
One thing I think it flows into what everybody's saying. So what I did to prep for tonight, I just kind of did little nuggets with an explanation. So mimic school routines now. Like, I think one of the things, Stacy, is saying as far as predictability, routines are they're the touchstones of mental health. What time do you wake up? What time do you eat breakfast? What time do you take the bus? What time do you, like all of those things are really kind of the ground you walk on as far as feeling a wellness. So the more you can just start to mimic it now, and that includes a child's daily schedule. Are they waking up at the same time, so that it's not so jarring when you go in? I think it's helpful. One thing, I guess, I think it's an important thing to say to parents is, and it's really about validation. You can do this. Your child is where they are now because you're an effective and loving parent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that is important, to say, because we're very much focused on the unknown. And Stacy, you're right on again. Like, we're gonna feel a lot better once we have a couple of days under our belt. But listen, your kids are doing great because you're great as parents. Just remember that.
It's a new world to all these parents as well, and the teachers. And I also said to some of the parents, just be patient, that there's going to be a lot of new things, and we have to be patient with the teachers, with the staff as well. I'd like to kind of see both, because everybody's going to be nervous, everybody's going to be anxious, and things might work out the first week and we think we got it under our belt, and then the week following something might change. They might say, now we're going to 2 cleaning days. Now we're
Mhm.
schedule. Now you're not going to get OT, get OT, virtually. So there might be so many different changes as it goes along. It's so unpredictable. It's so unpredictable.
Mhm.
You have to teach the word unpredictable and patience.
I think that,
Flexibility.
yes, flexibility, absolutely. And I think that what
Yeah.
makes it a little bit different for everybody, parents, teachers, children, all of us, is that it's a learning curve for all of us, not just the children, not just it's a learning curve for all of us. So just to kind of be patient with yourself as a parent, with yourself as a staff person in a school, and certainly with our children, especially if they have learning needs and disabilities, their learning curve is going to be a little bit different, may take a little longer. But, working together, school and home, that union has to be probably stronger than ever. And that communication has to be pretty consistent for us to all support each other and the children mostly.
That's great. So emphasizing that sense of community between parent and child, that you understand what your child is going through, and then that you understand that the school is going through its own set of changes. Our teachers are going through their own set of changes as well, and kind of affirming that process, that it's
Yes.
okay to kind of be in that process
Yes.
all together. That sounds really key. What looks different right now about our classroom environments? And I realize that, classroom environments may differ depending on the skill set of the students they're in. So, but what are there big themes of changes that have happened within the physical environment?
Less furniture.
Okay, go ahead.
Less furniture. I mean, just my own school. I mean, yeah, I couldn't speak to disabled schools, but less furniture.
Dr. Birch, you're right on that. There's definitely just less furniture. There's less desks. There's less, oh, sorry, there they go. A lot of what we've done in terms of, oh goodness, I'm sorry. I rescue dogs, so you got to forgive me. I'll throw that out there.
No worries.
But yeah, there's less of those U-shaped tables because you can't sit and teach that way. So, kind of tying that whole conversation you guys had before about like forgiving people. Teachers have been trained for years in best practices, and we know what best practices are. And you don't ever realize until you get into a situation like this of how much furniture plays into some of those best practices.
Oh, yeah.
So we have spent so much time as a community focusing on our integrated co-teaching program. And so much of that is about collaboration and students working together in small group. And we are rethinking so much because of furniture. So that's a really great question, Jonathan. It really plays into everything we do. Your lesson planning is entirely different when your kids are in rows as opposed to when you have your kids at tables. Our kids in Sable have been in all different flexible learning environments for years now, and now we're going back and they're going to come back. And so that's a great question. I'm glad you asked it.
I think
Stations, are there like sanitizing stations? I noticed some of the pictures of the classroom, even on the walls, it didn't seem like they didn't put up as many things on the walls or on the shelves or is that for cleaning purposes and such to make it easier to clean? Is that?
I know a lot of districts really restricted what was on. I don't know if we did quite as much, if it was as, intentional. I'm not, a building administrator, but I think people just thought less is more this year. I think that that's just sort of, that the space needs to be there for the children, not the stuff. Right? First and foremost, just as much as easy, like you said, as easy to clean as possible. And wow, it's definitely a shift. It's a very different mindset than we've ever gone into a
And
year.
it's frustrating because, like, Tracy, you're right on. Like, when I evaluate teachers, and you write observations to help promote reflection. One feature is configuration of the classroom environment. Does it support learning? Like, do you have a private reading area in a corner? Do you have, do you have desks configured in a way that promotes collaboration between students in the learning process? So that's a big shift, and it's rough because it's taken generations to learn how to use furniture effectively. But it is what it is. I mean, we have to be resilient and put on our best face and welcome our kids and make our families feel welcome. It's the nature of the business.
Great, great. How can parents help students with autism adjust to this new learning environment? In addition to a very pressing subject of coping with masks.
That's been a rough one, if I could just tell you.
Oh, yeah.
I do summer visits to homes, and I know Jen Hawthorne is a former BCBA, and now she's a teacher, still a BCBA.
I'm still a BCBA.
For those who are on as visitors, a behavioral specialist. And I will say we have had the daunting task of using Amazon for every type of mask that imaginable. So there's soft cotton masks. There's ones that you can put cushion things around the ears because a lot of kids with autism have sensory needs. There's straps that you can put around back here if they don't want anything on their ears. So now we have had some people even here in town, one of them is By a Thread. She's making what's called fun costume masks. So she's making superheroes, and she's taking custom orders just so my autism population knows Superman, Spider-Man, princess masks, dragons, whatever it is, and making it fun. And they're practicing outside of the sensory just how fun it is to wear this mask, almost like an early Halloween costume party. But for the sensory, there's a lot of different things that they've been doing to keep them off the ears, possibly the ones now, believe it or not, that are like a hat. Some are shirts that they can pull up the collar. They're literally making shirted masks now, even for women. They're large collars that fold up now. Dress Barn has them for women. Certain kids sites are making them for children with autism. So that's what I know so far, but everybody else jump in. So but that's
I've been working with one family. She was with me over the summer, and we were just working on getting her to tolerate touching it. Then we worked on tolerating putting it near her mouth. Then we worked on getting her to put one strap on her ear. Then Mom started sending in some other types of masks, and we found that the gator was the best one for her. So she would wear it around her neck, and now she'll pull it up. She's only at a few seconds, and that's okay. We're going to continue to work on that with her, and the family is continuing that while they're home. So, all the kids are different. The issues are going to be different. Some might have the, problem with the ears. Others might not like the mouth being covered. So we'll have to just kind of work on getting them to kind of be desensitized to it. But we use reinforcement along with it. So, when she first touched it, we would praise her. And then little by little, we would up the ante.
And their OTs can help with that as well. Sensitization, if they get OT or sensory therapy, bring them in so that they can also make games out of it. And like you said, learn touch, see if the ear ones don't work and the headband ones. Right. Yeah.
But I think one of the things, Jen, like you're saying, is desensitize. Like that's the organizing concept. In other words, you're practicing now and last week and hopefully the week before. This is a big issue. Like if your child has autism, I've spoken with, I don't know how many families. So I think Jen, like you were saying, is like, what you're offering rewards, reinforcers. Like that's spoken like a true BCBA. And I look at my school as a PBIS school, the entire school. So I'm sure, that's the same with you too, Tina. So there's reinforcing that desensitization process is
Mhm.
the linchpin of
Mhm.
getting a child using the mask.
Our BOCES had the opportunity, Eastern Suffolk had the opportunity of having, I'm sure many programs were open for the summer. There were a decent handful of programs that were open, and then my work after school hours with one particular student with trying to do the mask thing, and we used same exact thing, desensitizing, but the teaching strategies that we relied on were, of course, reinforcement and then shaping. And we had pretty amazing results. And you know, one day it's going to be great, and then just like learning math or reading, the next day it might not be. But you just keep it all in the positive, you know. And so this one particular student, we were modeling putting it on. The mother was wearing it, I was wearing it. I encouraged the mother, I encouraged the mother and the student's family to wear their masks in the house. Even if they were to take her out into the backyard, let her go out with the mask on. But and the type of mask was another issue. There were so many different kinds, and we found the one that this one particular child was favored. But we got to the point in summer after school programming where she was bringing the mask up to her face and trying to get it on her ear. She would let her mother help. And then it was like for a couple of seconds. And then bam, we would give her like a little reinforcer. And then we would, you know, extend the time. We found that if she was holding something in her hands, and we made her communication device be what she held, because she could ask for something on that, and her hands were busy and not so concerned about ripping it off in the beginning, you know. This little girl totally surprised me. I was so proud of her. But those are different techniques that, you know, a parent could ask their particular counselors or psychologists about, or their educational staff that works with their children. They could help you with these programs to try and help that be successful. But it was always positive. And she was so proud of herself when I'll remember the first day that she just brought it up to her mouth and put it down. We went, the mother and I were like, yay. And she was glowing. And then that just motivated her to keep going more. You know, we kept upping the ante. You know, first then was very powerful. All right, first touch the mask, first put it up to your mouth, then we get to watch a movie or, you know, a little song video. I do have some beautiful resources. I don't know if I should wait to the end, all about wearing masks.
Up to you, Tina, up to you.
All right, Autism Speaks has a beautiful, I mean, tons of stuff. Let me just share that screen with you. So here it is up here. And if you just go down this, it's just Autism Speaks, COVID information and resources for families. If you Google Autism Speaks and that title, you'll come up with this document. And then there are links, you know, parent training and support resources, behavioral, stress and mental health, teaching stories and visual supports. It's a ton of stuff. And then there's all these little, they're just like a couple of minutes each, but they're loaded with information, you know, parent training, exercise buddy. It talks about help is in your hands, videos of families interacting in the homes during all of this, caring for individuals with autism during a crisis. This is one that I really want to share. It's called We Wear Masks, and it's a social story. And I have to be honest, it's on the Autism Speaks website, but this could be huge for any child, a neurotypical child, a child with a disability, severe, I use this with many different levels of students just to get them to understand. And, you know, there's a little blurb in the beginning to families and providers and what have you. But then each page is we wear masks, and parents could get, go to this website, print this out. Sometimes we wear masks for fun. Sometimes we wear masks for dress up, and then it starts introducing, it's pairing some of these masks. I had the little girl I worked with too, I had her putting a mask on her baby doll. She loved it, and everybody had their mask on. But this is a huge resource. I'm not gonna read through the whole entire thing. It's quite lengthy, but it makes it normalizes it. Doctors and dentists wear masks. People wear masks to stay healthy and strong. So it goes from general to more specific. And it was just very powerful in teaching the students and this one particular child that I worked with hands-on, just what it is about masks. It's to keep germs away, and mommy wears a mask. So this is a great resource. I do have to say that YouTube is another great resource. I don't know, do you want me to pull something up with YouTube? I mean, it's called For Kids Wearing Masks. Okay, so let me get to that. Let me see. Okay. Here's another one, For Kids Wearing Masks. Now, this is Dr. Mel St. Germain, and she, let me see, I don't know why it's not popping up. Where is it? Hold on. Or maybe, oh, there it is. I had to move it. So I think I have to share this again. Is that correct? You're not seeing any of this, right? Let me
I can see the list of the YouTube videos.
Oh, you could. Okay, so then it is working. So can everybody see this?
Yes.
Yeah.
For kids? Okay, great. So this is another one, and this just simply explains it. It's a little over 4 minutes.
Those were the masks that I was speaking about. There are so many different sites. One of them is autism-products.com. I'll type it. And all those masks that they're showing in that video, you can get. They could even draw their own masks.
Design.
Yep, they could design
Awesome.
their own masks. So you're combining the art, you're combining the ownership of their masks. So I'll type on the chat what site that is.
So this is another resource. There's another one that I won't go to, but it's another YouTube. It's wearing a mask and social distancing for kids' education. It's Doctors Bop and Pop, and there's a little scenario in the beginning that talks about wearing masks and social distancing, but then it goes into music. I know that the children tend to really, get motivated by music and song, and it just shows it's another example. I could type those onto the chat if you want those YouTube resources, but that is a powerful, that's a powerful resource. I think that Autism Speaks page.
That's excellent. Thank you both Eileen and Tina. Go ahead, please.
Okay, I'll do that. I'll type that in now.
In preparing for summer school this summer, we had also tried to look for different websites and different resources for both the teachers and the parents. There was a lot on the Middletown Center for Autism. They have a whole gamut of things. They have transition, and they have a lot of social stories and templates that you can use. There's different transition books. There's different templates for anxiety, on how to look at anxiety, emojis for emotion. That was a really great one. Autism's Little Learners was another good one. You just really have to find what works for your child. Jed Baker did some talks about anxiety. And one of the things that I think he said that we had talked about earlier is if you can tell your child there's one person, or if you connect with one person that they expect to see when they go to school, that trust eases the anxiety. It gives them a sense of control to know they will walk in and see Mrs. So-and-so. So there's a lot of different resources on that one. I thought that was a great one. And there was also a teen guide to surviving lockdown and beyond, which was on that website. And it was great. It was great talking about anxiety, different feelings, different journal, different tactics. It was really great.
That's excellent. Go ahead, please.
One of the things that, again, I use these little nugget phrases. Like one of the things I said was identify targets and triggers. So, your triggers might be unexpected transitions, work that, your child feels is too hard. Like I think communicating that to the teacher is helpful, but then also absolutely focus on the targets. Like, maybe there's a particular teacher they had. It could be the greeter, the security guard. It could be the custodian. Those affective ties that they've been missing that help them feel grounded in relationship with the child in the school. It completely, they might not even be thinking about it. Like, I've worked in certain schools where, like, the custodian's like the king of the universe. The kids love him. Tells the kids fishing stories, like whatever it is that kind of reestablishes that bond. That's part of, what I say is targets. And maybe it's a friend that they haven't seen as much. Like, getting them thinking about, your children thinking about those things is helpful because they've missed out on a lot. And the socialization of school, that's one of the biggest, most important things that we can offer children. It's just that, that socialization.
Do we know of anybody who's utilizing the clear masks as teachers?
Speech teachers in my agency are speech.
I have them too. They're not that comfortable, but when I feel the need, for them to see my face and my expression, I'll switch back.
Do yours fog up, Jen? Do you?
I put a little Dawn soap on it, and it stops it from fogging.
We have hearing impaired children and children for speech. That's critical. So we have them. I'm going to tell them about Dawn, though. I didn't know about that. That's good.
That's what I was told, and I gave it a try, and it did help. Again, I can't wear it the entire time. I've been switching on and off. I just ordered more to see if they're more comfortable, if there's something better. But
because I know
you're very hot.
Yeah. And I know with children with autism, my own, he's an adult now, but he used to want to see my face,
Yes.
my emotion. So a lot of times I think now what's going to end up happening is some of the kids might be like, let me see your face. Let me see your face. Because even some of the kids who come in my center, they'll turn my face and they'll hold it. And they'll look at me, and as I'm talking, and they just like to, not hard, they just like to hold my face to see. So I know that that's going to present a little bit of an issue. So I was curious if the mouth is distracting. I know they're very stiff. I've tried one, and they are stiff. They're very hard, and everything fogs up. But I know that and then like you said, the hearing impaired, they're looking for your lips. Children with autism are looking for emotion, so it's kind of it's going to be a little bit of a challenge, I think.
Is there can you address the concern for students who are medically unable to wear a mask as carved out in Governor's executive order? Is there any way to address that concern for students who are medically unable to tolerate a mask? Any thoughts on that?
I legally, I do know, like, if they have a doctor's note, it has to be considered. Through my center, I've been asked that question. However, it presents a problem of safety. So some of the school districts have said that this one particular child is going to have plexi around his whole area where he'll be seated. But you still have the overhead air, but they're putting that child in that way. another district said that unfortunately for another child, they're going to have to they have to offer another option is what I'm being told, but Tracy and Stacy might have a more of a better handle on it. But it's really the district and the safety plan that they have in place and what they're comfortable with, because you have to protect the safety of others as well. So that's, I have to be honest, a very daunting,
Hmm.
and it might be, whereas they might have to sit in a separate area. It might be this enclosed plexi in some districts, and it might be that they might be offered virtual.
Mhm.
I don't know if Tracy or Stacy, if you've come across that yet.
The remote learning for us was offered to everyone. So if that's, if someone is saying that their child's medically unable to wear the mask, they might have opted for that already, and we wouldn't, exactly know why, we didn't ask families, or we didn't, at least in the special ed office, like why they were opting for virtual. We just worked with them to make that happen. But I heard from other people similar to what you were saying, Eileen, it's not plexiglass, right? It's the polycarbonate, I think.
Yeah,
Right.
It's like,
For fire code, I think, reasons.
right, yeah, we
But
can't.
the same basic thing, yeah, like the shields in
Yeah.
that kind of way, or what I heard other districts, kind of speaking in generalities, I kind of heard that same thing as well. So it's very similar to what you said, Eileen.
I think what's important for a parent is that if there are those concerns, certainly the children aren't going to be, they don't have to wear a mask. The children with disabilities don't have to. If they're going to be moving from one place to the other in the building, which that's going to be minimal because teachers are switching, not students. Therapists are pulling in, they're not going out. But I think that I think it's really important for a parent to open up communication and have a discussion with their school nurse and or administrator, definitely the school nurse, so that a plan could be put in place. Maybe some guidelines as to what might necessitate the child eventually coming into the school. But I think, or if they are coming in, what's going to happen? What's this going to look like? And I think that the parent has to really be actively involved in that conversation, because it's their say, So you guys got a lot of power, parents. And, but you don't have to do it alone. We're all going to be in this big brainstorm together.
Yeah.
You just have to reach out to that school nurse, that teacher, what have you.
That's excellent. Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for that. We're all in this together. That is just so important to emphasize that collaboration and that working as a team, as a
Yeah.
community, parent, student, and teacher, and administration, to figure out what our best way forward is for those students. Children with disabilities often have an intolerance to food, chemicals, pollen, etc. Children with seasonal allergies may exhibit some of the same symptoms on the list for COVID. So are there criteria for taking into account a student's ability to remain in school in those cases? Will the total picture of each child be taken into account in such a case? Any thoughts on that?
I think I thought about this question. So much of it will be, I think, a reflection of the culture of the school, how this is managed. I mean, safety first. I mean, a lot of families, they really don't think twice, particularly work in a BOCES setting. Your children are hard to be at home, so you want them at school. You have to work, you have responsibilities, there's a financial situation. So, not every family is kind of, they might be familiar and think that whatever symptomology they're seeing is typical of their child, and maybe it is. But you have to think in terms of, the group, you know what I mean? In terms of, the school. Like if you have a child that's showing symptomology that's similar to COVID, it's a problem. Like for us in our school, better safe than sorry. You know what I mean? We the parent has to, we have a separate room, not separate from the nurse. They're gonna have to get picked up if they're showing symptomology similar. We're not reactive, my school. We're very conversational. We're not punitive. We're not draconian. And that's what I mean by the culture of the school. If you're humane in the way you work with children and talk to their families, it's conversational. Now, I do worry about certain schools where it's like I know that they are draconian and maybe not receptive and mindful of the needs of children with disabilities. So you could find kind of harsh, like you have to pick your child up, like that kind of tone. They're sick and we can't have, like, we have to be professionals. But I think the family, I think we should expect it. There's going to be children going home because they might be showing symptoms, and it's not easy, but we just have to be compassionate and think of the safety of the entire school.
Is that something where, for instance, a parent, if their child really just has perpetual allergy symptoms, is that a conversation that they should be reaching out to the school nurse about way ahead of time?
That's the best advice.
Absolutely. On all of this, everything should, in my opinion, be open to communication, because we have asthmatic children who have 504 plans, and they have medical issues to begin with, so their tubing, their nebulizers. My son had the double dose. He had he had asthma and he had autism. So I really respect every single administrator on here and every single parent, because it's definitely going to be, these are challenges that are going to be new for everybody. And I know with asthma, wearing that mask is going to be a challenge, and being able to tell if the child is even exhibiting signs. Children who also have epileptic seizures, or children who have oxygen issues, we normally look at their lips. Nurses normally, teachers have been trained even for peanut allergy.
Mm-hmm.
Peanut allergies, a lot of times if a child's in anaphylactic shock, their lips will swell. So these are things that I really think it's key, especially on a 504 plan. What is the plan to be able to check these children, to ensure that their signs and their symptoms can be, because sometimes that won't be a situation where a child in a, say a nurse's office. They could be in a classroom, came across a peanut M&M, whatever the case is, and not be able to show signs. So I think that needs to be a definite discussion ahead of time, whereas on a clipboard, also walkie-talkies. I'm very insistent that there's walkie-talkies in every classroom, and I think the administrators should think of walkie-talkies, one per classroom, to the nurse's office, because it could be a matter of seconds that a child can exhibit an asthma attack or peanut allergy. So I'm kind of insistent on having a really ironclad. Poor Tracy and Stacy could tell you I'm a pain in the neck, and they're very thorough in our school district. I have to say they are wonderful with that. But I try to tell my parents in other districts, like, who are not as proactive, make sure playground, make sure field trips, buses, classrooms. I think with the new COVID rules, we're going to need a walkie-talkie for those children in those classrooms that have peanut allergy, asthma, and those sorts of, or epilepsy. Those are going to be things we're going to have to be key on. That's just, I'm sorry, my input on that.
No, that's what you're here for. Thank you. Thank you, Eileen. That's, we need to know those things.
I think conversation with the nurses is key, and then at their 504 or their IEP meetings, a really good solid plan.
And if I could, sometimes those plans are even more in depth with the nurse's office than even on the 504. Sometimes we will refer to a individualized healthcare plan, and that's where you're really going to get into some of like that nitty gritty. So we might not put every bit of that into the IEP or 504. We might refer back to that plan. And that's because we're not medical experts. So when we're sitting at the table, where our background is educational, and most people, and although the nurse will join us at the meeting for sure, I have to agree with everyone that if you're having any of those concerns, that you want to start with the nurse and say like, you're going to look at my child. I'm going to tell you all of September, his eyes are going to look watery. The pollen kills him in September with the watery eyes. He's going to be itching his eyes and touching his face. I know, you just want to have those conversations, whether it be with the teacher or whoever. So I think
Right.
communication again is going to be really key. We're again with that uncharted kind of territory, right? Are they going to have to blow their nose? Where are they doing that? They got up 20 times during the class to do that when their allergies are bothering them. Now they have the mask on. What does this all look like? It's a lot to think about. One question leads to 10 more every single time.
Yes. But as long as the people that are working with the children are aware, they'll be on the lookout for those things,
Substitutes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that can, and that information does get passed to a substitute,
Yeah.
like, just like a behavior plan would,
Right.
formal intervention plan would. So that would certainly as well, that list of children with allergies and asthma, so as the teacher, would be made aware. So parents, you could just say that. I think that also, I don't know that if a child just coughs that they're going to, race them to the nurse and send them home. I think that the real marker is going to be that temperature thing. But again, like parents, if you know that, your child is going to be experiencing some of those symptoms that are so closely related to COVID, let them know, oh, they have allergies, they have asthma. I mean, I myself have bronchial asthma. So here I am in the grocery store the other day, mask, gloves even, because I'm at that time of the year where I'm like, even with my mask on, I'm coughing into my arm. And my one woman was older and she just double glanced me and I said, I scared her, but I'm not going to go running around the whole store announcing, oh, I have bronchial asthma, I don't have COVID. But you have to share that information with the people who are going to be with your children, 6 hours of that day, so I am very consciously aware of that myself. So I'm always on alert.
Communication is just so key as you start to navigate this.
Yes.
It's almost like when in doubt, verbalize it. When in doubt, communicate it to the folks that are going to be working with your child, with your student. Just if I may, I have another question, and this is a really interesting subject. Children regressed significantly with remote learning, and it's imperative that they receive in-person instruction in a really supportive manner. So can the panel speak to the topic of regression? How do the schools plan to help with that? And what can parents do in the home environment to help with that whole regression phenomenon that we've experienced?
Well, I saw this. I'm sorry to keep talking so much, but one of the things I think about is, it's reasonable that a child would have regressed given that they've not had in-person instruction. But I think for me is I also want to manage our expectation as for families. In other words, there might be a longer transition for the child to readapt to the school environment. I don't want to confuse that with regression. They may have regressed and that data will become more obvious because, for children with IEPs, you're collecting so much data. So that's very real possibility that we've experienced a lot of regression. But I also don't want to have the placebo effect where, oh, my child's regressed. And I just want us to be open to what we're dealing with, but also expect those longer transition periods. Like you might have a child that was making eye contact that took him years to work up to that, and now they're not showing it. They may resume that after a month or two. So it's not lost.
Okay.
So I am definitely, I think we have to be open to the reality of regression without imposing it.
In regression, you can always, Stacy and Tracy could speak on this. There's usually guidelines, standards to which you gauge regression. But like you said, in a normal, how do we put this, in a normal classroom setting, whereas after the summer, I instruct my parents at the end of a school year to then go through the summer and then request, testing for regression in September if they have, say, a reading disability. However, with the combination of everything that all these children and the teachers and everybody have gone through, I've been calling it a shell shock. We have to be very careful with calling it regression, like you said, if maybe once they're back into the program for a little bit and they're starting to, it wasn't truly a regression, it was just trying to get accustomed again to learning. So we have to be so careful with saying, oh my God, they regressed, if maybe they really didn't regress, and vice versa. I mean, we also have to look at the fact that some children might have regressed. Some children did very well virtually. I had parents calling me saying, oh my God, I want to do this virtual thing forever. Jonathan's really more fun. And then I had some people who said, computer was a nightmare. It was horrible. So, I think, and I know Tracy and Stacy probably, that sounds so cute. Tracy and Stacy, I'm sorry I keep saying that, but I know they could speak more on regression as it's school-based. And, but I always tell my parents, try to gauge, when they come back to school, but give it time. Regression is, within a certain amount of time. So you can't say immediately the first week of school, oh my God, they regress, if we can give them enough time, to see whether or not they truly have. But I'm sure you'll say further.
Well, first off, Stacy and we just answer to both names interchangeably now because people get mixed up so much. So yeah, I'm glad everyone thinks it's cute because we just we did Stacy was our summer school principal, and I give her a ton of credit for just running such a beautiful program. And we had kids that were there in person, and then we had kids that were learning remotely for the 6 weeks, and our teachers were amazing. We just had such a great staff. And a lot of the regression, summer services for special education is always about regression. As much as we'd love to see our kids progress, it is like legally defined as, just making sure that kids come back where they left off. So hopefully most of our kids that were in summer were able to, get back to where they needed to be and just back used to being in school. We, like you said, we have a ton of data points and we'll have to take a look at that. But, the goal right now is school kicks off is going to be a little different than it's ever been.
Yeah.
I mean, we got the district's plan as well as the governor's, really the state's plans, the governor's plans. Everything is about just building relationships again and just getting kids to feel good about being in school. So as much as we want to dive right in and start going with those data points, we're going to give everybody a little bit to, build relationships again and get comfortable with our new norm. And we're so eager to see where our kids are. I mean, Stacy and I talk about it all day. I'll kind of turn it over to Stacy because you were with them over the summer more than me.
I think the summer, and I presented that to the staff also, that when we opened our doors in summer, all of us, administration and teachers and parents, had so much anxiety and worry, and we had such mixed visions of what would be walking through the door and how children would react and how it would go and if they lost or if, skills. And I have to tell you, Miss Hawthorne was one of our teachers this summer. We were amazed at how quickly the students adapted and just fell right back into their routine, even with everything looking different. So I do think and we talked about the first day, making the first day different and really focusing on social emotional and anticipating what they might feel. And we all decided the thing they needed most was the routine. They needed familiarity. They needed to be taught. They just needed a teacher and those relationships again. And after the first day, that's why I said I kind of know 2-3 days in, I think we'll all feel okay again. And the students and the children, they always amaze us. We have more fears and anxiety than they have. And I think they pretty much, when you put what they know back in place, I think they'll do great. And like Eileen had said, on a typical year, I always tell parents, you need to get at least, depending on the school year, when we're off for a week and, back in, we don't get a full week till October, you really need to give it some time for students to get back and show what they have and their skills again. And I think this is a year that we might have a little more flexibility with that as well.
Mhm.
Will you be carrying some of that summer structure into the fall as well? It seemed like the summer program was so well received amongst the parents. Will some of that structure be brought into the fall beginning?
Yes, definitely. We've communicated throughout the summer, before summer, and leading up until when we open. So yes.
That's excellent. Excellent. Good, good. Switching gears just a little bit, and then I'm going to start to open it up to kind of Q&A, and because I know we've just broached the hour, and I want to be mindful of your time. The at the preschool level, if any of our panel can kind of speak to this level, how is a balance achieved between classroom learning time and individualized specialized learning for pull-out services? Do you want me to read that again? At the preschool level, how is a balance achieved between classroom learning time and individualized, specialized learning for pull-out services? Anything from the panel about that? If not, that's okay.
Um,
I know we're talking preschool now.
Yeah, I could talk preschool. I don't know if that's referring to any of the new remote options that some
Yeah,
preschools
that's
have.
That's what I was thinking.
But I think each preschool, and I can tell you it's been a daunting task. Each preschool's running somewhat of a different program, offering a different program. As far as if the child was in school and being pulled out for services, I think that would go along with what they're used to, and the teachers and the staff usually schedule that so that students will get the best of both worlds and have some flexibility with when they're pulled out. Again, if it's a remote option, each preschool kind of has a different model set up right now, so it would depend on the preschool.
Wow, thank you, Stacy. All right, that's helpful, definitely. How can we create successful learning spaces at home where there might be inherently less structure present than in the classroom? So how can we create successful learning spaces at home? Any suggestions on that?
I mean, I can start that one out a little bit. I was thinking, read that question and thought a lot about that. Certainly just having the kids, I say this every year, but especially this year, just having like their materials all readily available, a little box of kind of everything that they need, so that especially maybe the child is home learning and the parent is home working, you can't be interrupted all the time. So, whatever the structure of someone's house is, trying to find a corner or a seat or whatever it is that's going to be consistent every day. Maybe what you think the first day. I know when my family went into remote learning last year, what I thought was going to work for all of us, it didn't, and we had to switch that. So I think by now people might have gotten through that, but certainly if a student's on remote learning full day, I think maybe those like visual schedules or some sort of a schedule, whether the parent slides it into like one of those little clear pieces so they can make it like a write-off board so the child can check things off. So anything in terms of the space to make it a space where a child can be independent, then at least we're still teaching that skill as well. And the skill of independence is so key at any age, whatever is kind of developmentally appropriate. So, just having that ready so the student can try to maybe manage themselves, or teaching them skills to, like, hey, if you're working on something and you can do 3 of the problems and 3 you have questions on, as a parent, maybe you're saying to your remote learner at home, do the 3 you can do, and then I'm going to come help you with the other 3, so that there's, you're not, some parents like, how am I going to sit there with my child all day, every day? That, again, daunting task to do something like that. So, I think that a neat, organized space in a place that you're comfortable with as a parent, but your child's comfortable with is going to be key. If you have multiple children, it's going to get tricky, and that's I hope you have a couple of spaces, but just maybe setting everybody up at least with their own materials might physically be helpful.
Great.
Tracy and I had attended a conference the other day, and a few things that they had said is just to make sure you have different materials. So if your child's a different kind of learner and they don't want to write, but maybe they'll use a rice board, or they'll use other things that might be more conducive to them, to have that. And then also just remember that they're home and they might need some sort of comfort. So any kind of comfort item or something that will make them more comfortable to help with the transition, even though they are home.
Great, great. How does a parent strike a balance between prescribed curriculum and a child being able to explore his or her own passions and interests?
I thought a lot about that question because I think that in, you know, a special education classroom on a typical day, you're trying to balance that and you're using those, you know, high motivating interests to kind of, you know, motivate them to do the less, you know, interesting schoolwork. But I think that at this time, a balance of that is crucial. And in some situations, it might be okay, you know, read this one page and do that one question, and you know, and then you could, maybe go outside for a little while. And so just kind of having it be a first then kind of thing, you know. A lot of times you might have to start with them doing their favorite thing and then doing a countdown or setting a timer. Okay, when this is done, when this rings, or when I'm done counting down from 5, you know, we're going to move to your desk area, that kind of thing. And just kind of, make it be as motivating as possible. You know, I think that I have another resource that talks about balancing all of that, because at home learning, you know, it's not a classroom. And, you know, parents, it's just been extraordinary how you have stepped up to doing this the past 5 or 6 months, to whatever extent, because, everybody was just thrown into this, especially you guys. But, it's okay, to do a certain amount of work, whatever they can tolerate, and then maybe jump to, all right, you know what? It's phys ed class. Let's go outside on the swing set for 15 minutes. And then, okay, 15 minutes is up. Let's come on back, okay. Or doing like a center thing where, okay, here's our reading center. Here's our math center. Here's our, free play center. Choose whatever you want. And then having it be kind of like that kind of a thing, even for, an older child who has some significant disabilities, to kind of keep it moving. I know that when I was doing virtual with students, I was on a kind of a quicker pace, and then I slowly expanded the amount of time I spent on reading before they went to their free choice. But you have to find the balance. And in the beginning, it's okay. Give yourself permission to spend maybe just 15 minutes on reading and, 20 minutes on the swing set, and then just slowly keep expanding it, over time.
And I told my parents in the beginning, start small. It was so overwhelming. They were getting calls from all of us,
Yes.
To schedule OT and PT and speech and myself. And then I was giving assignments to them. And I said, just start small. I said, set them up for success, set the parents up for success too. Because they were looking at these schedules saying, there's no way I can do
Yeah.
this. So, you can only do your best. And little by little, they got with the program, and they really did a great job. So I can't stress enough the schedule. Don't schedule your whole day. Schedule the morning, or schedule the first 3 periods. If it's middle school or high school, for yourself, and how you're checking in on what the assignments are. But don't go too big. You're not going to succeed that way. It's going to overwhelm you. And the other thing is take time for yourself.
Yeah.
Make sure you schedule your own break, because it's a lot. It's a lot behind that computer. It's a lot supporting your students.
Yep. These parents have been amazing. I've had parents call my center from the day school closed all the way up to about 2 hours ago. And they have been amazing. And like I said, I have the pleasure of dealing with our district, which is the CSEs, and the IEP meetings went a heck of a lot smoother than some. And they were like, we can't make any decisions. We don't know what to tell you. So without the information, parents were getting extremely anxious. And I kept saying, just wait. When your plan comes out, we'll reconvene. And then it might change again. And then it might change. So I keep telling parents, just make your short-term goals. And as it changes, just keep in touch. And you can call a meeting at any time, whether it be a Zoom, a phone call, a parent, an email. Just keep communicating and work it out. That it's gonna. My word I've been using to everybody is evolving. Everything is evolving. I mean, the same way standardized school started many, 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 many years ago. Now it's a new way of doing school. So I admire everybody on this panel and every parent, because I know personally, I'm sure on this panel, I've shed tears over it, just thinking of the parents and the teachers and the administration, and it's, and the kids, of course, and the family units. Everything has just changed so dramatically, so dramatically. And I admire everybody for getting past the 6 months almost, and that's just remarkable. They did it, and they need to be proud. Everybody needs to be proud. And yeah, there's going to be hard work ahead, but I'm just proud. I'm so proud of everybody for trying so hard. I couldn't imagine if my child was still in school right now. It would be a whole different ball of wax. It really would.
I had kind of two thoughts on this. One was we should be thinking of this, we're planning for the marriage, not for the wedding. And my other expression is, mental health matters for you and your child. In other words, we have to think past the first day. We have jitters. We don't want those jitters to prevent us from recognizing and addressing our children's needs. So in other words, we have processes in place. We have histories of relationships with each other. So, the child, your child might not be a socialist at first. And that's maybe because they're tired, but that's okay. But we just have to be attentive if we're starting to see our children isolating, because then that means that they're overwhelmed and they're not adapting. But, it's the marriage, it's not the wedding, and I think part of the problem of going out in March is it's been such a time of waiting, and all of this, these expectations and the uncertainty, we can't get lost in that, if we're locked in with our child and being attentive to how they're adapting, then, again, they are where they are, your children, because of you. So, and you're going to continue to be there just like you would be in a marriage.
Good metaphor, James. Good metaphor.
I like that.
As we start to, gear up for the next challenge of going back, but simultaneously reflecting on the fact that we got through March till now. We got through summer, and giving ourselves a pat on the back as we do that, and as we start to prepare. Any thoughts on suggestions for folks that have children with ADHD as they return to school? Any specific guidance that you might offer if someone's student experiences ADHD upon the return?
I actually just put up on the chat. It's from Chad. It's ADHD and COVID-19. But then again, as with the autism one from Autism Speaks, I would just encourage families to look at both of these resources. There are beautiful tools, no matter what, your child has for a disability. I'm going to just pop it up and share it quick, because there's just one little piece on this resource that I thought was really interesting. Again, it's create structure and routine, and then there's a few little things that you can get under there. And you can just click on them, and they're just short little vignettes that just give some really nice information. I want to find the one that I was looking for specifically for parents. I thought it was really nice. Some quick tips for parents. And that's one of the little vignettes or one of the little pages that you can go to. And it just makes it, maintain structure and routine, just things that we've all been talking about throughout this evening. Create a daily plan, design a calendar, that shows the schedule, and have your child actively participate in Xing out days and Xing off tasks complete. Choose one big activity and one small activity for each day, like starting small, make a box of activity ideas, like maybe they can create a little bin of their favorite stuff that they know they can go to, so this is another beautiful resource, again, not just for children or families with children who have ADHD, but just another resource for parents in general for you guys to kind of take a look at.
And for children with ADHD and ADD, there's a lot of organization issues. So one of the things I've been telling some of the parents too, they make these lanyards literally for masks. So I'm telling parents now to make little boxes with their child's name on it, or even a pencil case. I know pencil cases have been long gone, it seems, and put some extra masks in there in Ziploc bags. So send them in with 4 or 5 masks, send them in with a few, because they might be putting the mask down, then they don't have a mask, then panic comes. And I know, teachers will have additional and nurses will, but the thing is if you have a child with special needs who needs a certain mask and all of a sudden they left it somewhere, so their day is not, oh my God, I'm telling parents, prepare little boxes. And then we have those straps now. I know Out of the Blue sells them, Amazon sells them. They connect their mask to their neck. So if they have to take it down, it's still connected. So organization is key. So if we provide them with those things in little boxes or pencil cases, of course, talk to your teachers first. Just say, I'd like to send this in. He tends to lose his mask every 20 seconds, and that could prevent a meltdown right there. Different things like that, a little hand sanitizer. Some kids don't like the smell of the alcohol one. So at Brinkman here in town, they have the cranberry smelling one, which actually does not smell like at all like sanitizer. So you find the sanitizers the kids like to use, provided in a small pump. Certain kids do not want different smelling ones, tactile, defensive smell. Some are gel, some are liquid. I meant to say that before with autism. Those are things that are really key. So I'm putting up all those points on the Teach consulting page on Facebook. We're working on that now with my staff to really just give some pointers that we find that we've worked through in the summer.
Excellent. Wonderful, wonderful suggestions. May I lastly open it up to our room together with all of our participants and just ask if anyone has any particular questions that they wanted to ask our panel this evening. I tried to glean most of them from you before we began this evening. But if you have any additional questions that popped up during our conversation, does anyone want to ask anything? If so, please just raise your hand or give me a thumbs up on the Zoom screen and I'll be happy to unmute you. Or I can just unmute everybody. That gets a little chaotic though sometimes. Just watching my screen to see if anyone has any questions. And I don't see any thumbs going up. All right. I do. I have a question that came in on our chat thread, and I'll read this off. It looks like it came from Kelly to our group here. My son is 17 and has had difficulty with all of the changes in his routine and within the community, plastic barriers in stores, social distancing. He's had a few meltdowns as he wants things to return to normal. He really misses structure. I did 2 things that helped. First, I Googled age-appropriate social stories and bought a whiteboard at Staples for him to write his daily schedule. So just a little, looks like a little suggestion, helpful hint that came in from Kelly to everyone.
Thank you, Kelly.
Excellent.
That's
Anything else?
great. Thank you for sharing that. That's great.
Excellent. Good. And any other questions? Thank you, Kelly. All right, it looks fairly quiet out there with everyone. Just to sum up, hold on just a second. I have another question that came in. Rebecca, thank you so much for submitting this. My child is uncomfortable with hand sanitizers because she says they burn, and face masks because they're too hot. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, the gel ones seem to be a little less, the watery ones, the kids tend to want to just wipe right off. They have even now, my understanding, I have to look this up, cream sanitizers that actually have scents. So the cranberry one was very, like I said, it's a big gallon like this. I have one here. I drop them off at all the businesses. The cranberry smelling one is a little thicker. It doesn't smell. They actually have hand bacterial wipes. So if the kids are used to ones and all those, Brinkman's also has packages. Brinkman's, I keep saying, because they seem to have more PPE than anybody I know. So they have these wipes that come in a package, Rebecca, that they might be, instead of the liquid and the gel, which a lot of kids can't tolerate, they don't like the feel of it. The wipes are great. It's like a wet one. It comes in a package, and they wipe, and they're antibacterial wipes. The face masks, like we were talking about, some are more breathable than others. So see if you can find thinner ones that are not as thick and heavy. So I have about a box of 100 masks. I think I've tried every mask from here until Tuesday. I'm saving the heavy ones for the winter. Right now I'm trying to wear the thinner ones. So the paper ones, from what I'm understanding, I work out in the gym and they tell us the paper ones are lighter, Rebecca, and they're not as heavy. So they tell us to work with those because they're a little more breathable. But once again, you're going to have to try probably a little bit better. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, something with sounds like the alcohol is always very irritating to skin. So
That's burn, yeah.
And then another thing that you could also is just encourage frequent hand washing, and just know, the proper hand washing procedure. So maybe a little bit more often than others who would use a sanitizer. That would be a good.
Yeah, and to reinforce that, hand washing, like my school, it's an unusual school because a lot of the classrooms have bathrooms. It was built in like the 60s and sinks. Any classroom without a sink was not provided with hand sanitizer because we want to encourage hand washing. We don't want hand sanitizer is a Band-Aid. It's not as healthy. And I think you sing happy birthday twice or something like that.
Yeah.
It's a better option. Hand sanitizer, it's almost like a comfort to us, like we feel safe. And there's validity in that. And it's not a bad thing to use hand. But if you have a choice, you always want to wash your hands. Glad
you said that, James. I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah. One thing we didn't really talk about, I wanted to make sure I put out there is that, Tina, it's probably hard for you to think about it because like we work in both these settings. I'm in that. So like the role of personal counseling, like, if you're seeing the need for it, I couldn't be a better, I want to evangelize about the virtues of counseling because it's a reflective tool, and that what you're doing is it's helping your child or maybe you, manage. Because the reality is one part of the language of my school, and you find it across the board from the executive director of our division, who's the equivalent of a superintendent, is support. And it's that what you might find the need after, the adjustment might prove difficult, or for you or your child, but personal counseling, and sometimes people think they jump to the school. It might not be a school-based counseling need. It might not be something that's impacting the child's learning in the school, but it might be personal counseling because this situation, it's rotten. You know what I mean? So, avail yourself of counseling. And, oftentimes the school can have referrals, but you might have friends or family that could recommend somebody. And it really is, it's about a fit with a personal counselor, but there might be a need for that. Be open to it because, everybody needs support.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it's just don't forget about that resource. It's not a school-based resource. It might be if it warrants it, but really I always look at it first as maybe personal counseling because it might not be school related. It's just our environments are radically different.
Everything is, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. This may be very much premature, and I have not heard anything per se about it. I'm going in tomorrow's our first opening with just teachers and staff and what have you. So we're going to probably be planning, but I just want to encourage parents to seek out either in, whatever building your children are going to school in or doing virtual from. Um, Seek out those parent support groups. I know that, in ABOCES, we have monthly meetings, whether they're going to continue on a virtual basis or not, I don't know. But I think that just, any of the Autism Speaks, if you want to join chat, if you want, and there's parent groups that you can kind of hook into. And, parents are each other's best resources and they learn so much. And it just, gives the sense that, you're going to hear things that you've been dealing with, in your own little 4x4 walls of your home that you're going to hear so many other families dealing with also, and how they deal with it, or just to know you're not alone. So I would seek out those groups, whether they be connected to, a parent support that might be going on in the school where your children are, or virtually, or some outside parent group related to an organization like CHAD or Autism Speaks. This might be just a good time to really take advantage of those things.
And SEPTA, our local chapters of SEPTA. Hello, Cindy. Those are great groups to rely on as well because they always have informative speakers every month. And I know Tracy and Casey have also been guests on there and can share all this great information. And I think SEPTA always was a help to us because of the fact we felt like people understood. So COVID has affected all children, but children with unique needs are not always able to verbalize how much it really affects them. And parents have all struggled with this, but parents of special needs children who already have those struggles now been exacerbated. So it's nice for them to have a spot that one night, a month, or events that they could really say, oh my God, how about you? What are you doing? What am I doing? Okay, So I know the sectors do such a wonderful job.
Excellent. Very true. It's we have all been through a tremendously stressful experience. And, tonight we focused on our students and our students with special education needs. But, there are the parents, there are the families. We have our whole society has been through a major shift. And so, I think it's imperative to do the things like we did this evening, come together in community with a bit of kindness and compassion for each other. Because I think it's when we meet our challenges in community with that right positive mindset that we can start finding answers and we can find a way forward. James, your point was so valid about seeking some counseling. Just a little bit of a shameless promotion for the library. We are actually teaming up with Stony Brook Medicine Tuesday, September 8th. And we are having a special program called Back to School Physical and Mental Health for Kids. And so this is with Stony Brook Medicine and Stony Brook's Healthy Libraries program. So I just wanted to mention that. That's on Tuesday, September 8th at 7 p.m. That's another Zoom class. But Stony Brook Medicine will be talking about back to school physical and mental health for kids. You can find that on the library's calendar. You don't have to register for it. Stony Brook has the link on our library calendar, and you could just click on that link and go right to the Zoom on Tuesday, September 8th. And in line with the the fact that we're all migrating through a pandemic. I've booked a class with Family Service League, and it's entitled Stress Management and Self-Care in a Pandemic. And that's going to be on Thursday, September 10th at 7 p.m. And you can find that on the library's website on our calendar of events as well. And if you can't find it, always call me here, Jonathan, at the library, and I can help you get registered. But that's on September 10th, Stress Management and Self-Care in a Pandemic. Don't forget, as you're helping your child, to take care of yourself. If there are any other questions this evening, I'll take one quick glance at our room together here, and I don't see a whole lot. So I hope that our time this evening met a lot of folks' concerns and questions. I just want to thank our panel once again for taking your time out. I know you're busy, and you're going through this too. But thank you, Dr. Birch. Thank you, Stacy Gigante. Thank you, Tina Hannell. Thank you, Jennifer Hawthorne. Thank you, Eileen Tisner. Thank you, Tracy Von Eschen. Sharon Littman, I'm sorry that you didn't join us, but thank you so much for being willing to join us this evening. And Cynthia Barry, thank you so much for joining us from SEPTA and providing your support for this evening's program. So once again, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Did somebody have a quick thing to say? I thought I heard something on the Zoom.
This was awesome, Jonathan. I appreciate you putting it together.
Thank you. And, honestly, we would be nowhere without our panel. So I just want to thank our education community for coming together and supporting the parents of our community here in Sayville and parents of our greater Long Island area, because there are going to be folks listening to this presentation that are over in Patchogue and other areas. So once again, thank you so much, everyone, for lending your wisdom this evening. We are all in this together and continue to support each other. Thank you so much for joining us.
It was such a pleasure to see all of you. Stay well.
Yes.
Great.
So thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
you.
everyone.
Bye.
Good
Have a
luck
good
to
evening.
you. Good luck.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much, Jonathan.
Thank you, Tina. Take care, everyone. Be well.